From Blackfoot to Teton, we've got your District 6 breakdown right here on the East Idaho Prepcast with Lance Taylor.
That's right. Another edition of the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com, your weekly stop for everything Districts 5 and 6 in the state of Idaho. Brandon Baney joined tonight by Sean Kane. Sean is a broadcaster with IdahoSports.com, but his day job is in the education field. You are a teacher at Century High School, and you are also the head tennis coach for the Century Diamondbacks as well. Thanks for doing this, Sean. We really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here. So we've had a lot of extra time on our hands with the weather. So, I mean, we'll give it our best shot.
Definitely. This is our first East Idaho Prepcast in a week. I was a little under the weather last week, and now Lance is under the weather this week, and so it's just been a cruddy time of year. But Sean and I we're kind of like the Joe Buck, Troy Aikman. I mean, we're together every week. Right. Well, you have the better hair, so that makes you Troy Aikman by default, I think. Yeah.
Well, I'll take that, I guess. There could be worse, right?
Right, for sure. So. Yeah, but we're together every Friday during football season. We did a ton of basketball games together as well. So
just lots of games, lots of coverage. Great stuff here in Southeast Idaho.
No doubt. And then we kind of went our different ways in the spring because you're coaching tennis, although you have not. It's been a rough spring weather-wise in East Idaho.
Well, this is my 17th year of coaching. I don't know if I want that on tape, but it's there now. But in 17 years, I don't think I've ever had a season as bad as this. We've only gotten, for me personally, I've only gotten 5 matches in total. You're allowed to have 18 dates, and it's usually at the end of the year you have upwards to 20 matches per kid because you can play more than one match per date during that date, right? So at this point, with 2 weeks left, a week and a half left of the season, we're at 5 matches, and it's just been brutal to get the matches, and trying to reschedule with larger conferences is very difficult.
Now, the weather obviously impacting actual competition, but what about practice? Have you been able to practice?
We've got practice in this week. It's just been hit or miss. We'll get some practice in, and then hopefully you get the match, but then the match will be the day that it rains. So we've got to be the best practice team in the state, right? I don't know, but you can't really substitute matches in practice and that in-game pressure and all those intangibles. And I like to think I'm a pretty good coach, but the in-game stuff is just we're just really missing it right now.
Yeah, and so for observers that may not follow tennis too closely, but follow other sports in Pocatello, Century, and Preston for 4A, the big topic for the past 2 years has been this 3-team conference that was kind of forced upon Pocatello, Century, and Preston, right? It's been really nasty in the other sports, football, wrestling, volleyball, basketball, where it's really hard to get, because all 3 schools, Preston, Century, and Pokey, have had outstanding athletics across the board this year, but because of being in a 3-team district, not everybody gets to go to state. In fact, most leagues, it's just the one team. Now in tennis, it gets even trickier, Sean, because I believe Preston is the only 4A school that doesn't have tennis, right?
Off the top of my head, I believe they're the only one that doesn't, because as far as I can think of, and it's kind of crazy. So if you think about it, if someone goes, you have a 1 in 3 chance to make it to state, in your head, that sounds great, right? Oh, 1 in 3, well, I'll take those odds any day. But the reality is it's really difficult depending on the sport or whatever, but 1 in 3 is not great. And as we're finding out with the season spring sports, the softball team at Century and other places are just having a hard time rescheduling these games because these bigger conferences, they have to reschedule their conference matches for seedings for district tournaments and all this. And so Century, Preston, and Pocatello High School are just kind of left at the scraps. So I know there's been a lot of talk about different things, and you just really hope at some point the state could step in and kind of help draw those districts in a manner that's best for kids, because right now it's probably just not the best for kids and parents and and spectators are realizing this, that the kids aren't getting their reps at state, and you kind of have to look at the philosophy. Are we just going to be happy with going to state, or do we want the best state tournament? And I think most coaches are going to go, we want the best people there. So yeah, that's kind of where we've been on that. But yeah, it's difficult, and we only have 2 teams, so really the only one who wants to reschedule with us for sure is Pocatello High School, and we haven't even played them yet. We're hoping to play them tomorrow, but it's not looking great. And then our tournament is just with 2 teams, so we don't get that real kind of district tournament prep either. And yeah, I think I've seen tennis courts in Preston, but yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, tell me how district works, because the district champion will qualify their entire team, correct?
Well, each individual place qualifies. We get 2 this year. We get a rotating rep, so top 2 go. So boys singles 2 will go, girls singles 2 competitors will go, boys doubles 2 will go, girls doubles 2 will go, and mixed doubles 2 will go. So we actually will get good reps. So this happened to us a few years ago, and everyone was like, good, you only get to take this many people. And then when you see you can take like your whole team, when you get that rotating rep, they're all, that's not fair. Why does this school get to take only, why do they get to take their whole team to state and only have to play one other team? So, people go back and forth, and I've just been around long enough to know that it's not good for anyone, and no one really likes it either way. And I was talking to the Blackfoot track coach, and he was kind of the same thing. They only get to take 2. And if you look at all the top 10 times in the state, Blackfoot's got a bunch of boys there. But how can they be competitive with BK that district gets 6 reps and they get 2 and some at-larges? I mean, you're just really handcuffing smaller conferences and their ability to compete at a state level when you have that team-based system that requires reps to win. The more people you have, just the odds are way better.
Yeah, for sure. And in tennis, especially, this is going to be a problem for your team at Century, because it's like wrestling. It's the way it's seated is kind of subjective and at times, in my opinion, arbitrary. But you basically, all the coaches get together and hash it out, right? And
yeah, we used to have no seating, and there used to be only 4 districts. So if you won district, you got one of the top 4 spots in the draw, and then everyone was drawn out a hat. So a district winner could be playing a second place person in the second round. And I said, we can't do this. We're not getting the best tournament. I proposed district seating for 4A. We got it. We have a seating criteria. I've been part of that meeting every year since we've had it, and we go and we've if you go and look at the 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds, that's typically who places. Now, not every time, right? But percentage wise, our tournaments have been pretty sweet since we've put in the seating. But seating, is based a lot on head-to-head and stuff. And when you don't have the matches, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you have tennisreporting.com that keeps all this data if no one's played anyone, right? So we saw that difficulty, the same story, different day or whatever. Northern Idaho has this, they only get to play those 3 people. But, Northern Idaho has been in the same boat. They only get 1 rep or 2 reps for tennis rotating the same way too. So they understand the struggle of how to compete at state and not having those reps.
Yeah, because basically, tell me if I'm wrong here, but I think any district champ from Pocatello or Century is probably automatically going to get that 5 seed just from a lack of data, right?
Yeah, you would just have to look at the criteria, and sometimes if there's no head-to-head, we have previous state experience. We have match record. So match record is the criteria. We essentially one of my players is a district champion, they actually wouldn't meet the criteria to be seeded right now, right? Because they don't have 10 matches. So in fact, the AD is going to have to contact the state, and we're going to have some sort of exemption on that, because it's no one's fault but the weather's that we haven't been able to get those matches in. So yeah, so potentially the nice thing is we do have tennisreporting.com. This is the second year we've used it, and so we can get some comparables, head-to-heads. Maybe someone's played someone, and we can get a little bit of a clearer picture of maybe where that person would go. But for the most part, the district champion is going to get a spot, whether they're deserving of it or not, just of how we go. And Yeah, there's some tweaks that could happen, but I'd say for the most part, we get it right and we get the right people in there, and we at least eliminate like the two best players playing in the second round, which happened. I can't remember how many times when I started coaching, which was just awful for everyone. No one wants the two best teams play in second round.
Yes, and we saw that with the Max Preps rankings this year at state
Yeah.
for the so tennis as usual was ahead of everybody else in that regard. So
Yeah, and and it's very similar to wrestling. In fact, we use the same computer program to score the tournament as wrestling. They just had someone change the values and whatnot. So that's kind of funny. This old computer program from Cherry Lane, Illinois, or something, because I tried to buy it so I could use it, but they use the same one as wrestling. But it's the same thing. But wrestling gets some at-larges. So I mean, if you wanted to say what do we need for the future, if we're not gonna enforce a kind of a district that makes sense to rep the whole state, then I think you've got to look at some at-larges using tennis reporting to make sure we're not missing the best players at state. Because essentially last year, if I had a super amazing boys singles and Pocatello High School had a super amazing boys singles and only one of them won, then someone's not going, and that doesn't make sense for the kids and everyone. Like if they're really good and they're that quality, they should be able to compete at that state level. That's just my opinion.
yeah, it's kind of a microcosm of what we saw like in basketball, right? Where Century and Pocatello and Preston were all really good, and
yeah,
only one got to go.
And we got to see all those teams, and you would have loved to see all those teams get a chance to play. Isaiah Harwell, 20 top 10 or top number 10 out of 25 freshmen in the nation. I mean, that's the state tournament. I think is probably disappointed they didn't have that there. I mean, I would be even.
Yeah,
I'm a little partial, right? But I mean, if you got to see him play, and you like basketball, it's 100% worth it.
yeah, that came out this week, right? ESPN.com did their rankings for the class of 2025. That would be the freshman, and Isaiah Harwell from Century ranked number 10 in the country. That's just insane to me. But
and he just got to go to the USA junior basketball camp too, and he had some sweatshirts and stuff, and Coach Frost and I were kind of wondering where ours were, but we didn't get any. They looked pretty slick though.
Yeah, and that's it was a camp for Team USA. There's the main team that goes to the Olympics, right? Kevin Durant and etc. But then they have like a U19 and a U18 and a U17. They have all of these teams that compete in international competitions as well. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, he really liked that and thought that was a great experience, and just a really great kid, and it's just real exciting. But I mean, like that being said, though, I think everyone at the state tournament would have loved to see him go against. I mean, because Century and Hillcrest never got to play.
Oh, got to the championship, right? Imagine Century and Pokey meeting up in a state semifinal or something.
Yeah, I mean, the games that happened here in Pocatello were just electric. I don't know if I've been to many basketball games where the gym's so warm, your face is sweating just standing there, and they're good games and everyone's into it, and that's fun. That's high school sports at its best.
Yeah, for sure. So run through these tennis lineups for Century and Pocatello, as you guys still haven't faced each other yet, but as we go over the last 2 weeks of the season here, who are the athletes we should be keeping an eye on?
For Pocatello, they've got a good singles girl, Nora Scott. She didn't play last year, and she's playing this year, and she's real competitive. She's a good player. She'll be competitive with the player on my team, Lorna Sond, and that'll be a good battle. Luckily, potentially both of them can go. Last year, only one of them could have went, and that would have been disappointing. Pocatello also has a pretty good mixed doubles team, which is Nora's younger sister, Sydney, who didn't play last year. Also, she tore her ACL, and she's playing with Chase Gibson, and that's probably their strong point, or that singles and mixed. And then Brandon Mickelson's played singles for them, and he's not a bad player either. But then, Pokey's kind of in a process of building that team and getting it better. They used to not fill the whole team, in matches, and now they've got a whole team, and they've got players going. And Sid McRoberts, the head coach there, is a former player of mine, and she's done a good job at kind of getting that program back going. And Pocatello High School has a bunch of kids, and a lot more kids now, and they're getting them out there in sports, and then that's just awesome. For us, we have Daniel McGee. He's a freshman. He's a pretty exciting special talent. I mean, no one would know because we haven't played, but he also golfs at a real high level. So he golfs and plays tennis. So does Lauren. So we have a couple of those, and yeah, he's good. He beat the number one from Madison this year. Sam Morning, who's a good player, who's got, Madison's played like 12 matches. So they looked like a team that had played 12 matches, and we looked like a team that had played 4 when we played them at their facility, at their world-class facility up there in Madison. I had to buy a ticket to get in. I'm just joking, Larry. He always jokes the first 1,000 are free, but yeah, he won up there, and that's been his biggest win this year. He hasn't lost. He's 4-0. He beat Rigby. He'll have I think he'll have a good chance to win tomorrow if he plays, and then hopefully we got a makeup versus Highland Friday, which the weather doesn't look great either. But Highland has a good player in Landon, who's a senior, and he's won a bunch of single matches this year and played singles for a while, and that'd be a real good test for Daniel for them. And then also my mixed doubles team, Tyler Willis and JJ Anderson. They were 1 match away from placing last year. So they're like 5th or 6th is what you'd call it, I guess. And they've had a real good season too. They've won all but 1 match. They lost to Thunder Ridge, which Thunder Ridge is a loaded team. And so they're really good too. They're playing really well. We would just like to have more matches, and yeah. And and then, and just kind of keeping in the area. Highland also has Cassie Stoddard. She didn't play last year, but she's really, really good. She'll be either running for the state title as girls or definitely placing. I could see her placing for sure, but she'll be right up there. I think depending on what kind of draw she can get, that's the hope, right? Because what happens in Boise, something happens, right? And you don't win districts, and you're not in that draw.
Yep, for sure. So, we also know Madison's really good. I know Thunder Ridge is very good. Blackfoot has some incredible athletes as well.
Yeah, Blackfoot's only played 4 matches, so unless they don't have them all recorded. Madison has a great boys. That District 6 5A tournament will be real exciting. Highland has a bunch of girls that have played, place at state, and they'll be going against a very good Thunder Ridge girls team, where I don't think Thunder Ridge had a bad girl on their team when we played them. That will be a good district tournament. So, and IF also has some strong girls, and yeah, there'll be a solid tournament up there as well.
No doubt. Well, hopefully the weather cooperates. We can get some tennis action in, and maybe you'll have 7 or 8 by the time you get to state. 7 or 8 to state.
I'd love it.
Yeah. For sure. All right. Well, I wanted to talk some track and field as well, real quick. Last Friday, I was at the Direct Communications Invitational. Rockland hosted the meet, but it was held at Davis Field at Idaho State University in Pocatello, and there were 32 teams at this track meet. There was Highland at the 5A, Pocatello Century, Blackfoot for 4A, and then there was a ton of 3A, 2A, 1A teams. There are 32 teams in all. Really impressive competition. The athlete that stole the show, though, honestly, was Rylan Anderson from Snake River. He won 3 events. He won both hurdles races, and he also took the 400. And coupled with a win in the distance race by Keegan McCraw, he won the 2-mile for Snake River. The Panthers looks really impressive to me on the boys' side.
Yeah, and they've always got a strong track team coming out of there. They've always got a ton of runners. They're always really solid out of Snake River, and it must be the area too, because Blackfoot has a bunch of runners that are good too. They must have got some in the water up there. I don't know.
Yeah, Blackfoot, it was super exciting. The mile was one of the last events that they ran, and Matthew Thomas from Blackfoot came in with the best time, and he was 3rd heading into the final lap. And all of a sudden, in the last 800 or in the last 200 meters, he just kicked it in overdrive, and it ended up winning easily. It was so impressive to see Matthew Thomas of Blackfoot win the mile. Jacob Van Orden from Highland won the 800. He's been one of the best 800 runners in the state this year. He got to go to Arcadia, California, and compete in the signature Arcadia meet a couple weeks ago.
Jordan's fourth in the 400 and second in the 800 right now. So
yeah,
he's doing great. And they had Highland also had Ruby Jordan. She's ranked number 1 in discus, 4th in shot put. So some good throwers out there too.
yeah. And, I was mostly focused on what was going on the track, but I know Bruin Fleischman for centuries had a nice year throwing the shot and disc, and I got to see him because they did the classic 4x1 throwers relay, and Bruin was running the first leg on that for Century. Nash Harding, I think, was the anchor for Century on the throwers relay, but it's always fun to watch.
Maybe not the fastest, but the interesting looking team. I don't know. They're goofy guys. Nash and both Bruin, like, practice will end and the throwing things by the tennis court, and they'll stay there for like another hour throwing and trying to do it. And Nash Harding also plays golf as well. He's a good golfer too. But yeah, they're two kind of they're goofy guys. So, but they're fun. They're into it. They're always wanting to challenge someone in tennis, and I said stick to that football. They're Bruin.
Right. Let me ask you real quick, with golf moving to the fall next year for 5A, 4A, you talked about a lot of athletes are playing tennis and golf or golf and track. How much of that will we see in the fall? Will we see a football player that will also be able to golf, or do you think that's going to go away?
When I talked to people, it was the smaller schools like 3A, 2A. A lot of those football players golf, I guess. So they're when it kind of snuck under the table, right? This summer they decided that, and I don't think a lot of people knew that. And that golf is going to move to the fall, and and then now that it's come out that that's what's happening, everyone's kind of like, I don't know, but I think most coaches can make it work if you're willing to do it, and the kids got the work ethic to do it. Why not? That's why I have no problem. I have a great relationship with all the coaches I work with, and if they're good and willing to work, why not? Because you see kids just get burned out on whatever they do too much, and having just kind of a couple things that they're doing, it just seems to, I think it makes them a better athlete. I mean, really, at the end of the day, they're not overusing one thing. They're not so focused. That mental pressure isn't, overwhelming them, and they're able just to go out and compete and, have fun at one and maybe be upset at the other. I don't know.
They'll be upset at golf. That's a frustrating game.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. And I think it'll just depend. I think teams will, football teams, those smaller schools, they're going to have to find a way, because it's not like you can go find two other 300-pound guy, or what I'm saying. There's not going to be a lot of options. So if you can't work it out, I think that'd be disappointing.
Yeah, and I guess I will say I think it's only 5A, 4A golf that's moving to the fall. Okay. I believe 3A, 2A, 1A is going to stay in the spring, which I also don't like, because
I didn't know that. I thought it was all golf. So
no, I believe it's just the big schools.
That's confusing.
but again, we talk about competition. If you're Century or Pocatello or Highland, you're going to be playing the same teams all the time. You're not ever going to get to face other competitions. So yeah, that'll be interesting for sure.
And I talked to Travis Hobson the other day, the AD at Thunder Ridge, and he says I was talking to him about the golf thing, because he also was a golf coach at Century, and he's like, he didn't see it being a big problem, but the first state tournament's going to be here in Southeast Idaho next fall, and I can't remember what golf course he said it was, but he said it'll still be frozen by the time they having state. So it's kind of ironic that they've moved it for the weather, but the weather being good by the time they do state, it'll be interesting to see if that pays off for them.
Yeah, for sure. And fans that want to hear more about the golf conversation on one of our sister podcasts, the Magic Valley podcast, couple weeks ago, Scott Burton and I also talked about kind of the pros and cons of golf moving to the fall and how that might look. So you can go back, and really you should subscribe to all of our Prepcasts. We do one for each region of the state: North Idaho, Treasure Valley, Magic Valley, East Idaho, each and every week. So you can get those wherever you download your podcasts, IdahoSports.com. You can also watch these videos each week on the IdahoSports.com YouTube channel or Facebook page. Wrapping up with track and field, there were also some impressive girls' performances at that DirectCom invite. I think any track conversation in Southeast Idaho has to start with Matea Mangum,
Yeah.
the great sophomore sprinter for Pokey High. She won the 100. She won the 200. Neither one was particularly close.
Yeah, I've seen some video of that, like you're talking about in that race, the mile race with the next gear. She definitely has a next gear in those short, sprint races where it's all even, and she's not like physically, doesn't look like, oh, she should be beating everyone, which I kind of like, like she kind of seems a little maybe undersized, and then just boom, right, that last 5 yards or 10 yards, boom, she just goes out, and yeah, she's very fast.
Yeah, it was really awesome. The hurdles races, Callie Morris from Marsh Valley won the short hurdles. Gracie Litton from North Fremont won the longer hurdles. And so that's cool to see a 2A and a 3A athlete competing against 5A, 4A schools and getting individual wins there as well. That was pretty fun to watch.
And that's kind of really the only sport in tennis and wrestling, we get that a little bit in some tournaments, but track, you see it a lot more where you have the different school divisions, 4A, 3A, getting those meets in, and you see it a lot more. And it's pretty exciting to see. I think it's exciting for the kids, right? To see, I've been running here at 3A all year. What can I do against a 5A team or what, and it's kind of neat to see it. And for coaches, that's great because you get a good bearing on what you've got in the stable, right? What do we got here? And then you see how you're doing. You're like, okay, all right, we're ready for state.
Because you could have like Gracie Litton from North Fremont, right? And her time, like it's easy to evaluate yourself against kids from other schools because your time is your time. But until you're actually
looking
at the person next to you in the next lane over, to me, the time doesn't mean anything until you actually go head to head, right?
Yeah, and I was talking to a track coach about that, and he said that's the thing, is like you can go run and time and have this PR and all this, but when you're there and that person's good, and they've got that extra gear, and they're right next to you or a lane over, how are you going to react when the pressure comes? Because maybe you've been racing against people that aren't as fast, and you haven't even had to find that next gear, and better opponents are going to push you, and I think that's what's really interesting with the track and having the different divisions together.
For sure. In terms of big picture at state, in about a month, I don't know if there's any teams from East Idaho that can win the title necessarily, maybe like a Sugar Salem at the 3A level or a North Fremont at the 2A level, but the 5A, 4A, I mean, Boise and Bishop Kelly just have such a stranglehold on everything.
Yeah, I think Blackfoot will be in, everyone kind of feels like Blackfoot has a chance to place in boys. They also have some really good girl runners, but boys wise, they've got a lot of potential. But I think Bishop Kelly's won boys and girls track since track was invented. So just like we said about those reps, tough to go up there and compete, but to bring back a trophy, to Blackfoot, and track and stuff, I think that's definitely a potential they have going for them.
Definitely. I think there's definitely some teams that can bring back a trophy. I look like at the Thunder Ridge boys. Teo Johnson is really good in the sprints. Elijah Johnson's good. They both jump as well. So there's definitely potential for a team trophy. And I think there's going to be a ton of individuals coming back with state championships and maybe in multiple events even.
Yeah, Teo Johnson is leading the state right now in long jump with 23.5.5. So like you said, Elijah Johnson too. He was third in the triple jump. So they've got some tough people, and they have a good relay. And if you talk to any track coach, they all have a good relay. So I always find that's really interesting. Like some team always has a relay that wins, right? They might not win anything else, but they'll have this relay. I kind of look at it as like the mixed doubles of track, right? You can put everyone together and maybe get something out of it. But you always see those state sweatshirts, and like every team always has a relay that wins, which that's pretty cool. Get everyone involved, but everyone's got their relay, their 4x4 or whatever. But that's pretty exciting, I think.
Yeah, it was the very first event of the day. It was one of those distance relays. It was the it's the 800 meter relay for the girls, and then it's a 1600 meter relay for the boys. And these are new events to me because where I grew up in Montana, we don't have those events. We have we have the 4x1 and the 4x4, and that's it. We don't have any other relays. And it was the closest race of the day on the boys' side. Blackfoot won it by 5/100ths of a second over Nampa Christian. Doesn't get any closer.
No, it does not. Wow. But yeah, that stuff's fun. I think as far as I can know off the top of my head, I think Texas and Idaho are one of the last few states that do mixed doubles in tennis, and it's a fun avenue for smaller schools to get some tennis players to state and stuff like that. But I would tell you the most heated matches sometimes at the end of Saturday afternoon at the racket club are those mixed doubles, and people are just really into them, and it can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I like those events that are unique to Idaho for sure.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on the latest track and field happening as well. And again, we just got to hope that the weather cooperates. We're running out of runway here. We got to get this plane off the ground, and we're running out of room on the runway.
Yeah. Oh man, the bomb's going off. I guess I don't know. The weather, but yeah, I mean there was a track meet today too, and I know they started it, but there was a big downpour at one point, so I hope they got it done. In track they'll run with a little bit of rain, which is nice. I can't play with any rain because it ruins the ball, and the white lines are extremely dangerous wet. So
yes,
let's just hope for the weather.
Right? Yeah, the rain came through. We're recording this on Wednesday evening, the 27th, and like West Jefferson and Teton were playing like a baseball or softball game, and they started the game. It was the first inning that it was like 2-0 West J, and then all of a sudden they had to stop because of the rain. It's like, oh man, nobody can get a break. I don't know if they ever resumed it because it came through kind of quickly, but
it did stop. But like it started raining at like I don't know 2 here in Pocatello, and about 5 o'clock it kind of was sunny, but we had missed our opportunity to really get out there today. So I'll take medium weather at this time. It could be cloudy and cold. We just want to play. We just want some opportunities out there.
Yeah, for sure. So, well, Sean, thank you for hopping in and talking to us this week. It's nice to talk tennis a little bit. And you're very plugged into the sports scene in East Idaho, so you're a perfect co-pilot for this.
Whether they like it or not. No, I'm but no, it's fun. I got into it, doing some football games with you, and now I just talk sports all the time with people. It's not a bad gig,
Yeah, no doubt. So good luck this weekend to all the teams and individuals competing. Hopefully the weather cooperates. And for Sean Kane, I'm Brandon Baney, and we'll see you next time on the East Idaho Prepcast on IdahoSports.com.